How did you deal with loss?
Faith. You know, I'm Irish, I'm Catholic. The church has been a big part of my life.
Pierce Brosnan just stunned the world with news no one expected. At 71, the screen's iconic agent is staring down a nightmare that feels personal and unstoppable. He already watched cancer steal his first wife at 43 and his beloved daughter at 41. Now, fresh trouble has dragged him back into that same dark corridor, and the fear is louder than any explosion in a Bond film. Brosnan drew his first breath on 16 May 1953 in the river town of Drogheda, and fortune did not wait at his cradle. There was no family estate, no proud lineage, not even a father to lift him high. Thomas, a carpenter, slipped away so quickly that Pierce remembers only an empty chair at the table. His mother May held on tight, juggling night shifts in an English hospital while writing letters home that smelled of disinfectant and hope. In 1957, she made a gut-wrenching decision and crossed the Irish Sea to earn better pay, trusting relatives to keep her boy safe. What she hoped would last months stretched into 7 lonely years, while Pierce bounced from his grandparents in Navan to an uncle and aunt in Trim, learning new house rules with every suitcase he unpacked. The constant moving carved resilience into his bones. Teacher spotted a sharp mind hiding in the back row, eyes always drifting the horizon as if mapping a way out. At 11, he boarded a train to Greenock, Scotland, because May had remarried factory worker William Carmichael. Joy and resentment twisted together inside him. He loved seeing his mother, yet bristled at sharing her with a patient stranger who fixed clocks and offered quiet advice. William chose kindness over command, teaching the boy to fish, patch a roof, and trust slowly. One autumn night, he guided Pierce into a cinema, showing Goldfinger, and Sean Connery's fearless Bond detonated across the screen. By 16, that spark had become wildfire. Pierce quit formal school in London and hustled a place at St. Martin's School of Art, munching toast and tea while sketching fierce portraits inspired by Francis Bacon and Lucian Freud. His classmates arrived in chauffeured cars, yet he stood his ground, determined to outwork privilege itself. Fate lurked in the wings. In 1971, he wandered into a street theater workshop and stared as performers swallowed blazing torches. Rather than retreating, he asked to try, and when he breathed out fire, the director saw raw bravery flicker in the smoke. They begged him to stay, and the lost boy finally felt the spotlight warm his skin. Acceptance at the Drama Center London followed, a 3-year boot camp for the soul. The instructor stripped students bare, then rebuilt them through Shakespeare, mime, fencing, and endless voice drills. More than half quit, but Pierce fought on, bussing tables and sweeping floors to cover the steep tuition. Every sunrise he woke sore, but unbroken. Stage victories arrived fast. In 1976, he chilled audiences in wait until dark, using stillness like a knife. The next year, he rescued Tennessee Williams' troubled play The Red Devil Battery Sign, turning a London flop into a minor sensation. Reviewers who missed his name before now printed it in bold. Cinema cracked open next. He blinked onto the screen beside Elizabeth Taylor and the mirror cracked. Barely 30 seconds, yet proof that celluloid doors were opening. The same year, he stalked through the long Good Friday with Helen Mirren and Bob Hoskins, his minor Irish Republican, leaving a scar menace that fans still discuss today. As the film matured into a cult classic, Pierce's quiet intensity spread well beyond Britain. By 1982, he was a near unknown in the United States when he auditioned for a throwaway corpse in a new NBC mystery named Remington Steele. More than 200 hopefuls paraded in, yet the casting team felt lightning when Pierce flashed a sly grin. The producers tore up their own blueprint and handed him the lead role, gambling that charm could trump nationality. Network bosses fretted that viewers might frown at an Irish accent guiding primetime television. But doubt melted after his first smooth line. Remington Steele ran for 5 lively seasons and turned the unknown Irish artist into an international star. Magazine covers, interviews, and fan letters poured in, and suddenly Pierce was flying first class instead of hiding his last coins in his shoe. Yet behind the smiles, he never forgot those hungry nights, and he treated every new opportunity as if it could vanish at dawn. Success brought new love, too. In 1980, he met Australian actress Cassandra Harris, whose steady strength matched his restless spirit. They married the next year and raised 3 children together, blending her 2 from a former marriage with their own boy. Pierce called her his North Star and credited her calm for keeping his public life grounded. Hollywood whispered that he should be the next James Bond, a rumor that thrilled viewers and tied studio lawyers in knots. Schedules clashed and the dream slipped once, but the seed stayed alive, waiting for its moment. Then tragedy fired its first cruel shot. In 1991, Cassandra fell ill with ovarian cancer, and despite fierce treatment, she died at 43, leaving Pierce heartbroken yet determined to honor her by living boldly. He adopted her older children as his own, promising to guard them forever. He kept pushing forward, finally donning Bond's tuxedo in 1995's Goldeneye. The world cheered as the orphan from Drogheda filled the largest spy shoes in cinema. 4 blockbuster films followed, cementing his place in pop history and rebuilding a life rocked by loss. What a ride Remington Steele kicked off on a clear Thursday night, 1st of October 1982. The title card flashed and living rooms everywhere leaned closer, rocketing the series to NBC's second hottest freshman slot within hours of its debut. Week after week, almost 16 million loyal viewers returned, proving that stylish mystery could still dominate prime time. Yet beneath that shine, the production team fought budgets, time slots, and corporate nerves. By the end of Season 4, in spring 1986, the axe fell and the cancellation notices hit the press, triggering a tidal wave of angry letters and protest calls at jammed NBC switchboards. Network chiefs blinked and pulled a rapid U-turn, approving one last batch of episodes. The Swan Song in February 1987 played like a national event. Nearly 26 million fans gathered for the farewell, an audience many long-running dramas never reach even at their peak. Money followed eyeballs. At top speed, the show poured more than $50 million advertising dollars each season into NBC coffers, while international syndication marched into over 80 countries, pumping an extra $200 million into the global bank. The cultural echo was wild. Between 1983 and 1987, applications for private detective licenses in the United States spiked by a staggering 340%. People saw Pierce work a case with charm and decided they wanted a magnifying glass of their own. Fame, however, is a double-edged sword. Just 8 weeks after premiere, newspaper critics and late-night hosts were already chanting that Brosnan belonged in James Bond's Aston Martin. Entertainment Weekly stamped acclaim in black ink that January, crowning him the most Bond-like talent since Sean Connery. Producer Albert Cubby Broccoli was not deaf to the chorus, and soon called from London to Hollywood to test the waters. By the time 1984 rolled around, rumors grew so loud that NBC marketing turned jokes into official campaign lines, hinting that Remington kept secret files thicker than MI6 itself. TV Guide splashed Pierce on the cover with a coy headline, asking if viewers were staring at the next 007 in plain sight. And Fleming, widow of Bond's creator, even declared Pierce looked and moved exactly like her husband's vision. Critical respect rose in parallel. That same season, the Golden Globes shortlisted him for Best Actor in the series Nancy Astor, placing the fresh Irish import shoulder to shoulder with powerhouses Anthony Hopkins and John Gielgud. Reports claim he missed a trophy by a razor-thin 3 votes, a story that added fresh sparkle to his growing myth. Bond negotiations, though, zigzagged like a high-speed chase. Many think his first formal invitation came in 1985, yet Broccoli's team had quietly weighed him back in 1983 for A View to a Kill. Roger Moore hesitated about another tour in the tux, and Pierce hovered just out of frame, ready. The earlier meeting had happened on the For Your Eyes Only lot, when Cassandra Harris shared scenes with Moore, and Broccoli pulled Pierce aside, whispering, "If he can act, he's my guy." Studio nerves soon ignited. Fearing public dismay over losing Moore, executives waived a record payday of $3.5 million to coax the veteran back, freezing Pierce out once more. Then came the cruel twist in 1986. Remington Steele's cancellation had freed Pierce's calendar, but chatter of him sliding into Bond drove the show's ratings skyward. NBC executives smelled easy profit, reversed the cancel call, and ordered 6 fresh episodes under his tight contract. Those pages locked him away from the Bond soundstage, and producers pivoted to Timothy Dalton almost overnight. Dalton, a close friend of Pierce, delivered a grittier take. But American audiences failed to latch on, leaving License to Kill stuck at 34 million domestic. Watching from the wings, Pierce believed he could have balanced danger with charm and kept the box office booming. During what fans nicknamed the lost years, from 86 to 94, Pierce refused to wilt. He picked scripts with care, diving into Fourth Protocol as a razor-sharp British agent battling Cold War terror and slipping into Nomads to prove he could handle supernatural dread. He even toasted television during slick Diet Coke commercials that showed him gliding through parties in a perfect tux, an open wink at Bond duty deferred. Off-screen, his heart stole the spotlight. He first met Australian star Cassandra Harris at a dinner party in the late 1970s, and sparks practically crackled across the table. They moved in together in leafy Wimbledon, sharing small morning routines that felt bigger than any movie deal. On 27 December 1980, they married in a quiet chapel filled with nervous laughter and big hopes. Cassandra arrived with 2 children, Charlotte and Christopher, and Pierce never flinched. When their biological father, Dermot Harris, died of a heart attack in 1986, Pierce adopted both children instantly, giving them his surname and a promise to be present every single day. He later laughed, "I wasn't a father. I was just Pierce, and then I became daddy." Their own son, Sean, arrived in 1983, turning the household into a vibrant team of 5 who cheered at small victories and picnicked on whichever lawn was handy during shooting breaks. Pierce's career was rising fast, yet he kept family first, determined to supply the warmth he had missed as a boy. Cassandra enjoyed her own slice of Bond history in 1981, when she appeared in For Your Eyes only as a stunning ally beside Roger Moore. While filming, she reintroduced Pierce to producer Broccoli and urged him to chase the legendary role. Broccoli loved the spark he saw, but those binding Remington steel pages barred the way for the moment. Cassandra never doubted he would eventually holster that famous Walther, though fate would not let her witness the triumph. In 1987, Pierce Brosnan's life took a brutal turn. While filming The Deceivers in India, his wife, Cassandra, suddenly began feeling terribly sick. They rushed back to London, and that's when the hammer dropped. Doctors diagnosed her with advanced ovarian cancer. It wasn't caught early. It wasn't contained. It was everywhere. The news hit like a wrecking ball. Pierce later said, "From day one, we had a fight on our hands." What followed was 4 long years of pain, hope, and relentless treatments. Cassandra endured 8 surgeries. A year and a half of chemotherapy drained her body, stripped her hair, and tested every part of her spirit. But she never crumbled. She questioned doctors, demanded answers, and stayed in control until the very end. Pierce was always beside her, calling himself the quiet party. There, but unable to stop what was happening. Their little son, Sean, tried to make sense of it in the only way he could. By pretending to be the doctor, he'd put on a stethoscope and check on his mom with wide eyes and a fragile smile. It shattered Pierce. The horror didn't stop there. Cassandra's own mother had died of the same cancer. This wasn't just random, it was genetic. And now, Pierce had to worry about their daughter Charlotte, too. The fight lit a fire in him. He began speaking publicly about early testing and ovarian cancer awareness. It was too late for Cassandra, but he wanted to help someone else before they ran out of time. On December 28, 1991, her clock ran out. That final night, as they lay in bed, Cassandra whispered something that would stay with him forever. "Please, darling, don't worry. It's just a life winding down." Even in her last moments, she was still the strong one. She passed away peacefully. No machines, no hospitals. She had chosen dignity. She was only 43 years old. Pierce and her son Christopher were by her side. Charlotte, away in London for acting school, stayed on the phone through tears. It was just 3 days after Christmas, while the world was celebrating. Pierce was planning a funeral. Then came the hardest part, telling 8-year-old Sean that his mother was gone. Pierce had to become a single father overnight. Sean was 8, Christopher was 19, Charlotte was 20. It crushed him. He later said, "It was the first time I felt true grief. It hit me like a wave I couldn't outrun." But he kept moving, because that's what Cassandra would have wanted. "She made me who I am, we once shared. She's forever in every fiber of my being. Then, in 1994, everything came full circle. Pierce Brosnan was finally cast as James Bond. It was a bittersweet victory. Cassandra had played a Bond girl in For Your Eyes only back in 1981. She had cancer by then, but she still pushed Pierce to go for the role. She believed he could do it. She wanted to see it happen. She never got the chance. So when Pierce finally put on the tuxedo, it wasn't just for him. It was for her. A dream they had built together. A promise fulfilled in grief. His first Bond film, GoldenEye, was a make-or-break moment, not just for Pierce, but for the entire franchise. The production had already gone through multiple directors. The budget ballooned to $60 million. MGM was hanging on by a thread. If the movie flopped, Bond was finished. But GoldenEye roared into theaters and pulled in $353 million worldwide. One scene alone, a tank chase through St. Petersburg, cost $8 million. Pierce did 90% of his own stunts, including a 220-meter bungee jump off a Swiss dam that was so dangerous, insurance companies refused to cover it. The movie premiered exactly 30 years after Sean Connery's final official Bond film, Diamonds Are Forever. But this wasn't a sequel, it was a resurrection. The impact was huge. Nintendo even launched a GoldenEye 007 video game, which changed gaming forever and introduced Bond to a whole new generation of fans. Pierce's success didn't stop there. His next 3 Bond films, Tomorrow Never Dies, 1997, The World Is Not Enough, 1999, and Die Another Day, 2002, brought in a combined $1.238 billion worldwide. But behind the cameras, the pain hadn't gone away. When Tomorrow Never Dies premiered, Pierce was still carrying the weight of Cassandra's death. 6 years later, he poured that heartbreak into the character, especially in the film's emotional scenes. The action didn't slow down either. One sequence in Saigon cost $12 million. They had to recreate an entire Vietnamese street in England just to make it work. The World Is Not Enough had Bond's longest opening sequence at 14 minutes, and his first female main villain. They even triggered a real oil pipeline explosion using 120 gallons of gasoline, which created a fireball visible for miles. Then came Die Another Day, Bond's 40th anniversary film. The scale was massive. It included a $300,000 invisible Aston Martin and a massive ice palace in Iceland made with over 1,000 tons of frozen water. But the stunts nearly killed Brosnan. During a parasailing sequence, he got caught in 30-foot waves and was pulled under. He ended up in the hospital with hypothermia. It could have ended everything, and yet he kept going. In 1996, Pierce won the Saturn Award for Best Actor, beating none other than Sean Connery himself, who was nominated for The Rock. It was the first time a current Bond had outshined a former one. Even Steven Spielberg came calling, offering the role of Indiana Jones. But Pierce turned it down. He wanted to honor Bond. That decision likely cost him $50 million, but it showed where his heart was. Everything looked perfect until 2004. While filming After the Sunset in Bahamas, Pierce got the call. It was 2:47 p.m. The Bond producers were cutting him loose. No warning, no explanation. The call lasted 47 seconds. You were a great James Bond. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Just like that, he was out. It didn't make sense. His films have been massive hits. Die Another Day alone made $431.9 million, more than any other Bond film at that time. But the producers had already decided. They wanted a younger Bond, and they waited until he was vulnerable to deliver the blow. In just 3 days, Pierce's career flipped upside down. 3 movie deals vanished. Studios backed out. Internal emails later revealed that execs saw him as too Bond, too iconic to be cast in anything else. His asking price fell from $12 million to just $3 million. He had to let go of 12 staff members. When the Casino Royale trailer dropped, his kids saw him cry. The role was passed on, and he wasn't even given a proper goodbye. To make it worse, producers had been screen testing other actors in secret for 2 years. That betrayal cut deeper than the firing itself. But something beautiful had happened back in 1994, just before he became Bond. On April 8th, at a beach party in Cabo San Lucas, Pierce met Keely Shea Smith. She wasn't drawn to his fame. She saw the man behind the movies. They talked until 2 a.m., and within 3 weeks, he flew her out to meet his kids. 6 months later, she moved in. Keely became his anchor, the one thing he could rely on when everything else crumbled. And in 2001, they got married in Ireland, surrounded by friends, family, and memories of everything they had survived to get there. The wedding was like something out of a dream. It cost $2.3 million and was held at Ballintubber Abbey, an ancient Irish church that had stood for nearly 800 years. Just 100 guests were invited, including Judi Dench and Liam Neeson. It wasn't about flash. It was about love. Pierce wore a traditional Irish kilt, embracing his roots. But when he saw Keely walking down the aisle, he broke down in tears. It was raw, real, and emotional. But just when life seemed to settle, tragedy returned, this time in the most painful way. Charlotte Brosnan was only 41 when she died in 2013. And her death wasn't just heartbreaking, it was haunting, because it marked the third time ovarian cancer had claimed a woman in the same family. Her grandmother died from it. Her mother, Cassandra Harris, passed at just 43. And now Charlotte. She was taken 2 years younger than her own mother. She fought like a warrior. For 3 long years, Charlotte battled a silent killer. Ovarian cancer often hides until it's too late. Around 75% of women aren't diagnosed until the late stages, when survival chances drop from 90% down to 20 to 30%. Charlotte was born in 1971. Her biological father, Dermot Harris, died young. In 1986, Pierce adopted her. He gave her his last name, his heart, and unconditional love. But love couldn't protect her from the cruel genetics that had already stolen 2 generations. For Pierce, it was a nightmare playing on repeat. Back in 1991, he lost Cassandra. He'd watched her fade away through 8 surgeries and endless rounds of chemotherapy. He once said, "You're dealing with death. Everything changes." Then, 22 years later, it happened again, this time to his daughter. At the 2014 Stand Up to Cancer fundraiser, Pierce stood under the lights, holding back tears. He said, "I held the generous, strong, beautiful hand of my first wife, Cassie, as ovarian cancer took her life much too soon. And just last year, I held the hand of my funny, wonderful daughter, Charlotte, before she too died from this wretched, inherited disease." It wasn't just grief, it was trauma repeating itself. Deep, familiar, unbearable. His close friend, Bronwyn Royance, said it best. Charlotte's illness came with the darkness. Pierce was reliving the whole nightmare. He had found love again. He had built a new family with Keely Shea Smith. Together, they raised 2 sons, Dylan and Paris. But when Charlotte got sick, it all came flooding back. Every moment of helplessness, every memory of Cassandra. He was crushed, but Keely held him through it. Steady, loving, and unshakable. Then came the cruelest twist of all. Charlotte got married. On June 14, 2013, she married her longtime partner, Alex Smith. She said, "I do," with joy in her heart. 2 weeks later, she was gone. On June 28, 2013, at exactly 2 p.m., Charlotte passed away in London. She was surrounded by Alex, their 2 children, 15-year-old Isabella and 8-year-old Lucas, and her brothers, Christopher and Sean. She had been born in London, studied acting there, and now she died there. Pierce released a short, heartfelt statement. Charlotte fought her cancer with grace and humanity, courage and dignity. Her strength was astonishing. Even in her final weeks, she planned her wedding. She wanted her children to witness something beautiful, something filled with love. Isabella was 15 when she lost her mother, the same age Charlotte had been when Cassandra was first diagnosed. Lucas was 8, just like Sean had been when his mother died. The pattern was eerie, too perfect, too cruel. Charlotte was a devoted mother. Her friend Claire Beckwith remembered her saying, "This is my family.